The carnival gate shuddered with a deep, low-frequency hum that vibrated through the soles of their shoes. Holly did not stop. She pulled forward, weaving through the thick crowds, her eyes locked on the skeletal structure of the Ferris wheel looming against the twilight. They reached the base, the air thick with the scent of hot sugar and burnt electricity. A metal bar slammed down over their laps with a sharp, echoing snap. The gondola lurched. The ground beneath them didn't just fade, it dropped away, replaced by the swaying rhythm of the giant wheel. Holly pressed her palms against the glass, pointing at the miniature stalls that shifted into colorful smudges far below. Fiona leaned over the edge, her gaze darting between the thick steel spokes and the dark mirror of the lake stretching out behind the fairgrounds. The wind picked up, cooler and sharper at this height, whistling through the gaps in the frame. They were suspended in a pocket of air, the noise of the crowds muffled into a distant, rhythmic static. The wheel groaned, tilted, and held them there, hanging between the glowing lights of the earth and the darkening sky. The gondola settled back against the platform with a heavy jolt. Holly and Fiona stepped out, their legs shaky from the height. They did not slow down. They sprinted across the packed dirt toward the center of the fairground. The carousel stood waiting, a spinning ring of light and sound. Holly reached it first, grabbing the cold brass pole of a white horse. Fiona scrambled onto a blue one just as the platform lurched into motion. The music blared, a distorted, rhythmic loop that seemed to pulse in time with the shifting floor. As the carousel accelerated, the world outside blurred into a streak of neon color. They gripped the poles, knuckles whitening under the strain of the centrifugal pull. The horses rose and fell in a steady, mechanical cadence. Up, then down. The rhythm was hypnotic, pulling the air from their lungs and replacing it with the sharp, metallic scent of the gears. They shouted something to each other, but the music swallowed the words, leaving only the sound of their laughter rising above the mechanical grind. Round and round they went, the platform vibrating beneath their boots, spinning faster until the lights of the carnival merged into a single, dizzying circle of motion. The carousel slowed to a crawl, then stopped with a final, grinding sigh of metal. Holly and Fiona jumped down, their balance still adjusting to the solid ground. They wove through the throng of people toward the game row, where the air tasted of burnt sugar and cheap prize plastic. Holly stopped at the ring toss booth. She picked up a handful of thin metal rings, weighing them in her palm. The bottles sat in a tight formation, glinting under the harsh overhead bulbs. She tossed the first ring. It bounced off the rim of a green bottle and skittered onto the wooden floor. She paused, narrowed her eyes, and shifted her feet to account for the slight breeze cutting through the alleyway. She took a breath, held it, and flicked her wrist. The ring sailed in a clean arc, clipped the neck of a blue bottle, and spiraled downward. It landed with a sharp clatter against the glass. The booth operator reached up to the high shelf, unhooked a pink teddy bear, and dropped it onto the counter. Holly snatched the prize, her fingers digging into the plush fur, and let out a quick, sharp laugh of triumph. She turned to find Fiona, holding the bear high as the neon lights reflected in her eyes. Fiona did not wait. She strode toward the dart booth, her eyes scanning the wall of inflated targets. She pulled 3 darts from the counter, feeling the weight and the sharp bite of the points against her skin. She stepped into the throwing box, planted her feet, and pulled her arm back. The first dart whistled through the air, but it struck the wooden frame with a hollow thud, missing the balloons entirely. Fiona exhaled, adjusted her grip on the fletching, and narrowed her focus. The next throw was faster, a snap of the wrist that sent the dart spiraling deep into the red balloon. It popped with a sharp, echoing crack. She did not hesitate, throwing the third dart before the sound of the first pop had fully faded. It pierced a yellow balloon, adding a second explosion to the air. The booth operator pulled a stuffed dolphin from the back wall and tossed it across the counter. Fiona caught it mid-air, squeezing the plush against her chest. She turned to Holly, both of them grinning as they tallied their prizes. The thrill of the win surged between them, their laughter blending with the distant mechanical hum of the carnival, leaving them eager for the next challenge. The adrenaline of the game row faded, replaced by the heavy, rhythmic thrum of their own heartbeats. Holly and Fiona wove through the shifting crowds, their prizes tucked firmly under their arms, until they found a small, circular table sheltered under a striped umbrella. They collapsed into the metal chairs, the relief of sitting spreading through their tired legs. Holly pulled a bag of popcorn from her carry-all, tearing it open with a crinkle that cut through the ambient noise. She poured a handful into her palm, the butter slicking her fingers as she tossed the kernels into her mouth. Fiona reached into a paper cone, pulling away a long, translucent web of cotton candy. It stuck to her skin, dissolving into a sugary film as she tugged at it. They shared a single cup of lemonade, passing it back and forth. The condensation on the plastic exterior left wet rings on the tabletop, pooling where their fingers brushed against the surface. They sat in the sudden, relative quiet, watching the lights of the carnival blur into long streaks of color against the darkening sky. The frantic pace of the last hour slowed to a steady, comfortable stillness as they finished the snacks, grounding themselves before the next movement. The sugar-fueled pause ended as they stood and headed toward the funhouse. They pushed past the heavy entrance curtain, stepping into a corridor of polished glass. Every surface caught their image, throwing it back stretched, compressed, or twisted into impossible angles. Holly walked toward her own reflection, but her legs appeared miles long, her torso narrow as a needle. She halted, blinked, and swiped a hand across the air, watching her arm bend in ways that defied physics. Fiona moved alongside her, but her reflection lagged, appearing as a squat, wide shape that wobbled with every step. They turned a corner and collided, not with glass, but with each other. The unexpected impact sent them reeling against the padded walls. They looked up to see their distorted forms overlapping in the mirrors, creating a chaotic montage of limbs and faces. The absurdity broke their composure. Holly doubled over, pointing at Fiona, whose reflection looked like a jagged, shifting shadow. Fiona gasped for air, her own laughter shaking her frame as she tried to navigate the path forward. They stumbled deeper into the maze, tripping over their own feet, their voices echoing against the glass until the entire room seemed to vibrate with their shared amusement. The laughter from the funhouse still clung to them as they burst out into the cooling evening air. The sky had deepened to a bruised purple, and the lights of the bumper car arena pulsed like a heartbeat. They scrambled into separate cars, fingers white as they gripped the hard, rubberized steering wheels. The power hummed beneath their seats, a low vibration that traveled through their spines. Holly slammed her foot down, the motor whined, and she shot forward, banking hard to catch Fiona in her side mirror. They collided with a deafening metallic screech. The impact rattled their teeth and threw them against the padded headrests. Fiona recovered first, wrenching the wheel to the left and spinning her car in a tight, aggressive arc. She rammed into Holly again, the force of the jolt sending both cars skidding across the polished floor. They were locked in a cycle of motion, steering wheels jerking in their hands as they fought for control. Every crash brought a new wave of adrenaline. Their shoulders ached from the repeated jarring, but they did not slow down. They spun, crashed, and pushed against the metal barriers, their movements frantic and uncoordinated. The arena was a blur of grinding steel and shifting lights, a chaotic rhythm of impact and recovery that left them breathless as the ride reached its frantic peak. The grinding machinery of the arena faded into a dull hum as they stepped away from the ride. Their shoulders throbbed from the persistent jolts, and their breath came in short, sharp bursts. They moved through the thinning crowds, leaving the neon haze behind to find the path leading toward the grassy hill. The ground beneath their feet shifted from hard asphalt to cool, damp earth. They climbed, boots pressing into the slope, ignoring the ache in their legs as they sought the highest point. At the summit, they dropped down into the grass, sitting cross-legged while the carnival lights below pulsed in the distance. The chatter of the surrounding crowd began to die away, replaced by a sudden, heavy stillness that hung in the night air. Holly leaned forward, hands resting on her knees, eyes fixed on the black expanse of the sky. Fiona held her breath, her fingers digging into the soil. Then, a sharp, piercing whistle tore through the silence. It rose in pitch, cutting through the dark like a knife. A split second later, a brilliant orb of gold erupted overhead. The sudden, intense light flooded the hill, washing out the shadows and illuminating their faces in a stark, blinding glow. It was the start of the night's peak, and for a heartbeat, the entire world stood frozen in that shimmering, silent radiance. The golden glow had barely faded before the sky ignited again. This time, it was a rapid, stuttering barrage of red and green that turned the clouds into a shifting electric canvas. Each boom arrived in a heavy wave, vibrating through the ground and thumping against their chests. Holly pressed her heels into the earth, her head tilted back, watching the sparks rain down in glowing trails. Beside her, Fiona squinted against the strobing light, her pulse quickening with every successive blast. The air smelled of sulfur and ozone. The sky was no longer a void. It was a living, breathing machine of light and sound. They didn't speak. Words were impossible against the relentless thunder that seemed to rattle their very teeth. A cluster of emerald bursts fractured into 1,000 smaller points of light, followed instantly by a deep, crimson crack that lit up the entire horizon. The intensity escalated, the intervals between booms shrinking until the night was a continuous, frantic cycle of brilliance. Their eyes darted from streak to streak, tracking the chaos until their vision swam. They sat motionless, chests heaving in rhythm with the echoes, completely anchored by the sheer scale of the display. The finale began, a sustained roar that drowned out the world, leaving them breathless and staring upward as the last of the light burned into their retinas. The final echo drifted across the lake, leaving a ringing silence in its wake. The sky, just moments ago a chaotic storm of color, returned to its deep, velvet purple. Holly stood up first, brushing the damp grass from her legs. She reached down, retrieved the pink teddy bear, and tucked it securely under her arm. Fiona followed, hoisting the stuffed dolphin as she pushed herself upright. They stood for a moment, listening to the distant, fading hum of the carnival machinery. The adrenaline that had fueled their evening began to ebb, replaced by a slow, heavy fatigue. They turned away from the hill and began the steady walk toward the exit. Their feet crunched rhythmically against the gravel path. Ahead, the carnival lights flickered, casting long, wavering silhouettes that stretched out before them, dancing across the ground. They kept their pace measured, avoiding the urge to run, as if moving too fast might break the stillness of the night. The prizes, held tight against their sides, served as anchors to the day that had just passed. They reached the gate, passing through the threshold where the atmosphere changed from the electric buzz of the rides to the quiet, cool air of the road beyond. Neither spoke, yet the shared rhythm of their steps told the story of the day. They walked into the dark, their shadows merging with the night as the glow of the carnival receded behind them.